here we are. Here we are. All right, here we are. All right, here we are. Rogue Rigging World Headquarters. I'm Ryan, your host, the Rogue Rigger. And yeah, this is a new series we're starting out here. It's we're calling it the Splice It series. And so I'm going to take you guys step by step through how I splice a bunch of different materials. Yeah, not only do I do a bunch of standing rigging and lifelines and deck hardware installs and a bunch of sailing on fast boats, but yeah, my real obsession is with rope. As you can see, I have quite the collection. We've got a huge selection of rob line, so from around the world. So we got rob line, which is from Austria, Teufelberger. My tried and true that I've been using for whatever 20 plus years now. New England ropes, they're from Massachusetts. And then well, from down there, we've got Kingfisher. That I get from the UK, which is made by Mafioli, so technically Italian as well. And then we just brought in some Southern ropes, which is from South Africa. And then there's some Samson in here somewhere, I'm sure, some spools somewhere. And then as well, we've got some Marlow as well back there. So yeah, so I have rope from all over the world, and I'm obsessed with it, and it's all about having the right rope for the right application. And so so I'm gonna share with you guys how I splice my rope, and yeah, take you along the journey. And just remember, I am a trained and certified rigger, so all my splices get sent out to get certified. They have to get pulled to at least 100% or to 100% of the breaking strength of the rope. Yeah, so I've done that several times over the years. And yeah, so just because I'm certified does not mean that you're certified. But yeah, so we're gonna take you through on how we do this. All right, so this week we've got a big challenge. We're gonna be splicing some Marlow, what is it, MGP. So it's a PBO Vectran blended cover with a D1278 core. So this is kind of at the upper end of the spectrum on the rope that I usually work with. These are going to be runner tails for a TP52 that's down in Southern California. And yeah, so it's going to be a bit of a challenge. They're not very long, but there's a lot that's got to happen, so this is kind of how I write out my notes. I know it's a little hard to read, but the middle here is the actual covered section, which is going to be this stuff. And then we're going to do Dyneema chafe sleeve for the last 13.5 feet there with a 2.5-inch eye. And then the tails are just going to be some, what is called the Kingfisher Swiftcord. And it's just like a lightweight tail because it's not under load and you don't want it to knot or huckle or anything like that. So yeah, that's what we do with there. So here we go. All right, so you just saw me run the line out, and I just wanted to run it down the bench just to make sure I've got that they set me the right length. They did. Plenty to work with. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to extract the core about like 10 inches from the end here. And what I do is I squeeze it together and kind of break it at the same time, and I try to get it to herniate out the core. So I can tell this cover is actually like really thick. So this method's probably not going to work the best. So then at least helps get it started, and then you can pick it Yeah. So I'm using this cover as it was recommended from Marlow Ropes for this application, as this is what they use for on a lot of TP52s around the world. But yeah, with runners, they see a lot of load, and there's a constant like easing and trimming. So so you get a lot of like high heat situations where most lines will not hold up to those conditions, or they won't hold up very long. So if you have like a Technora cover that works really well, that's blended with the polyester. The problem is the polyester eventually melts, and it actually like makes like a super grippy surface, and so it's really dangerous and hard to unload the runners because they just want to grip to the drum. So you need like grippy hand. You need to be able to have a good hand on it, but you also need to be able to release it. So I think the PBO is there to help grip, but it also like it lubricates itself. It's kind of a weird thing, but yeah, it's really awesome. And obviously PBO is not cheap either. But yeah, so the PBO eventually it kind of becomes sacrificial because it kind of fuzzes off, and like that's why you see on race boats like the drums are like this color, the PBO color, from it wearing off. So I mean these things are super strong, a bomber, but like at the high end, like it's not meant to last for a whole bunch of seasons. Like this will probably get this team through the season, depending on how much sailing they're doing. And it's not because of the quality, it's just like you've got ceramic drums or carbon drums, and if you're sailing the boat a ton, like these are seeing a lot of action. So yeah, so you just saw I pulled that guy out, and now this is kind of the ridiculous thing, but eventually this is what's going to get buried into here. But first we're going to put over the Dyneema chafe sleeve on that end first. So yeah. All right, well that was kind of a pain. Thought it might be, yeah, and it was just the stickiness of the PBO. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's sticking to the core. So that's what I was doing. I was struggling there. It took me a while longer than I actually filmed for, but yeah, working with the high-end materials can be a real pain to work with, but yeah, it's part of the fun, something different every day, new challenges. That's why I love my job. All right, so now we're gonna slide on some of this Dyneema chafe sleeve over the top of this core, and we're gonna put an eye at the end of it as well. All right, so we got the core in the Dyneema chafe sleeve, and now it's gonna come out here, and I'm just gonna do a quick eye splice here with the Dyneema chafe sleeve. All right, just gonna go back in where it came out. Then, oh, sorry, we gotta do our 2.5 inch eye. See how that looks. See. Yeah, perfect. All right. So I went back in there, determined the size of the loop. So that'd be the loop there, and then now I've got to bury this part here back into here, okay? So I'm just using my Samson fid taped on with the D-splicer tape, which is like a really thin tape. We used to call it Marlow tape, but now D-splicer's got their own version of it as well. You can use packing tape if you don't have it, and that can work in a pinch, but it's not as good. But all of them are not very strong tapes, but they're nice and slippery. So just slide this guy through, and I'm burying it at 2 foot 3 inches, which is like what you the bury on 9mm line for proper high-tech splice. All right, come out here. So now that's our eye there. We can take off the tape or just do that. Grab my de-splicer scissors. So now I'm gonna taper the core here. All right, so I got that all nice and tapered. Now I'm gonna get my eye set. Just milk all the slack out of it. Doesn't have to be perfect right now. Okay, and now it's just gonna be a matter of milking this slack out like that. Gonna do it one more time. Okay, nope, and then I can get rid of this chunk of chafe sleeve that's in the way. All right. Okay, so now it's just a matter of milking the chafe sleeve back over the top. I gotta get all of this slack. See, goes together like that. Pop it all through. And now we can like establish our actual eye. Like that. Double check it, 2.5. Good to go. And then got our little flap of cover here. Sucker just wants to roll with me. Get my fid. And then we're just gonna fan this out like that. Cut away half the strands. And then we're gonna come in here. Come down, I don't know, about 3 inches. This chafe sleeve up, I'm liking it. This is Kingfisher's Mafioli Dyneema chafe sleeve, and yeah, it's quite lovely to splice with. All right, so I got the fid through like that. Now I just bend it over on itself, pull that guy through. So I like to do my locks, or my stitches right now. Whipping twine, and since this is, you know, holding up a whatever $250,000 mast, let's put some Dyneema whipping twine on it. The stuff is not waxed, so I take my chunk of beeswax. I'm due for a new chunk. I think I'm down to the last little bit here, but I just run it through. Love the smell of beeswax. So I think there's a little pine in there or something. I don't know. The more you warm it up and use it, the better it smells. All right, got that. Then I'm just gonna go right here. And I'm gonna cut it off and hit it with my torch. Then so you can either whip around like that. Yeah, let's go for it. I'm gonna whip it around. I was gonna lock stitch it. I'm feeling this. Just a regular nice whipping. Back. Got that locked in there. And now I will take this guy and just give it a nice little taper. Milk it back over the top, just like that. And then I'm just gonna do just a little bit more of a lock stitch, just so that I can sleep at night. Good. Okay. So that's our eye. Let's get this junk out of there. Like that. And then the other end, we're just going to bury the cover into the core. All right. So now this is at the other end from our eye. And we're gonna just bury this cover tail into the core here real quick. Same thing as I always do, I kind of fan it out, get rid of half of the strands. And then we've got my cool little splicing wand that I've made from some welding wire. Just gotta get started. This stuff is very, very sticky. It is sticky, sticky, sticky. Just make sure we get a slack out. All right, fid comes out. Then this guy goes in like that. Pull that through. Bam. Just make sure we got all this slack knocked out of this. Good, good. And then I'm just going to just do a quick lock stitch here. This isn't structural, it just holds it in place. And then you can do just a little bit of a, I use the spike and you can fan it out. So we can get a little bit more of a taper here, fan it out, rake it out, whatever you want to call this. We just want to make a nice smooth transition, or a nice smooth taper. This should do. That out of there. Couple of strands still there. Bam. Okay, so that's that. That looks really nice and slick. And so now, this cover is going to get milked over the top of this. Trying to do this as quickly as possible without boring you guys. And you can hear, I mean, this stuff is so sticky. Hoop. A little slack. Oh my God. Just gotta milk out some of the slack just so that it's got a smoother taper right there, because it's bunching up on me. There we go. That's going over the top. And we're supposed to be 13 feet 6 inches, so we got a little bit more. We're at 13 feet 6 inches. Right there. All right, so for our next challenge is we're gonna bury this cover tail into the core right here. So this cover's pretty thick, so it's going to be kind of a pain, and I'm trying to make as nice of a transition in this area as possible, obviously so it doesn't get hung up on blocks. But we're going to do a little bit of pre-tapering, and so I'm going to go about 1 inch away from this joint, and I'm going to pull out some strands here. Some strong PBO strands. All right, so, and just like usual, I'm just trying to keep it a nice even distance. But this will just help get the diameter down a little bit, so it's not as thick. I don't want it to be chunky going through the blocks. Okay, let's go one more. Man, hit my new scissors. Okay, and then I'm going to do like I always do. Fan it out. Get rid of a couple strands, or half the strands. Get this out of the way. All right, so now it keeps doing that. All right, so now we got that in there. That's looking really good. So now we're just gonna do our normal tapering. So now what I do is heat up my beeswax and wax the heck out of it. And what this does is it just keeps the strands in there nicely. It's not glue, but it just keeps them buried in there, and so they don't start popping out. Okay, so now like that. Now, all right, so now I got to get all the slack milked out of the cover so that's nice and tight on the core. So what I do is I just take a scrap of cover that I've got laying around, and then I just tie it around, and so you can just go around like that, and then I tie another, just an overhand knot, and it's just, you're just trying to create friction. Essentially it's a prusik knot, and then all I'm doing is pulling against it and getting the slack out, and you can see it's kind of builds it up right here in front of it, getting all that slack, and so it's just milking it all down so that it gets nice and tight on the core, and so it'll be plenty strong, and they won't be chafing against each other. All right. All right, now for the next trick is, so here's the end. I cut the end of the line, you can see the core in there, and so the next trick is we got to put in this Kingfisher Mafioli Swiftcord in there. We got to splice these guys together. So this stuff's good, but it's still a little stiff, and then this is stiff. So yeah, this will be fun. Here we go. All right, that actually wasn't so bad. I was prepared to have to use the winch and the 2-pound sledgehammer to persuade this thing and what have you, but no. So yeah, so because this area is not structural, this is just like the tail, just so that when the runner's released, you've got enough length, but you use the less expensive line and the lighter line that doesn't absorb any water, that lays around in the cockpit. So yeah, so now we just gotta cut the other end of this guy, and then we're done with this. Oh wait, except I gotta make one more, but yeah, good times. All right, let's finish this sucker up. Cut that off. I know it's a combination of Dyneema and polyester, so I'm gonna try whipping it, see how that looks. Otherwise you can just put heat shrink on it, but I'm trying to keep it fancier looking. It's pretty good. Nice whipping. There we go. All right, super stoked how this turned out. Yeah, so it's made out of Marlow MGP Vectran PBO blended cover with a SK78 core, and then we've got the Kingfisher Mafioli Dyneema chafe sleeve on the end, and then we've got the Kingfisher Mafioli Swiftcord tail on it. Yeah, super stoked how it turned out. Yeah, it's a fun challenge. I love stuff like this, but yeah, this is kind of at the upper end of the world, and then the other end, you know, I'm working on dinghies and Catalina halyards and Erickson halyards, and yeah, just everything in between. So I enjoy the challenge and of all that. So yeah, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe, and yeah, stay tuned for more of these. All right, Rogue Rigger out.